trending this week is analog bags. Don't know if you've heard about this, but some people call them stop scrolling bags. So they're basically tote bags filled with sort of offline activities. So there's like crosswords, knitting, scrapbooks, Polaroids, and the trend is basically being led by millennials and Gen Z. It's exploding on TikTok right now. Not sure how those two merge, but it basically is reflecting this wider push to sort of unplugging. Analog wellness is a trend that's apparently catching on, and it's about creating a sort of offline world and being more aware of the amount of time we spend on technology. Have you got an analog tote bag?
Well, I try and live as analog as possible, even though the term was, until a few months ago, just an indication of something was completely defunct, right? I like how it's just, oh no, analog is cool again now. I mean, it's
Yeah.
back to the 90s stuff, isn't it? We're fantasizing about a halcyon time when people didn't have technological distractions. I am all for this stuff. I try and live as analog a life as possible these days, which usually results in 10 of my best friends texting me after a week saying, "Are you alive?" because you haven't replied to any of our messages, because I'm trying to not be on WhatsApp and just not be on anything, actually, apart from needs most. And also because I've got a 2-year-old daughter and I'm very cognizant of whatever I do with my phone and with my tech around her. She's just going to think that's what people do with their time. And actually it is, but I wish it wasn't. So I'm really kind of strict at the minute with less time spent doing tech stuff. And I'm much happier for it. Reading is the number one activity that comes back for me when I just put my phone away and I just don't get any devices out. And I'm an author. I'm meant to be reading to become a better writer. So it's just so basic. But I do find it hilarious and it's trending on TikTok. Who's doing the coverage if you're analog? I don't get that.
Right. I mean, I think look, it's all got to be a bit of a balance, right? I will say that I was at a house recently, basically it's my granddad's house. It's being redecorated. No one's living there at the moment. I was there. There's no internet. And I basically I was there for sort of 2 days by myself. And there was a moment where I was just sat in a chair, just sort of staring at the wall for about an hour and a half. And I was just sort of thinking to myself. And then
Yeah.
suddenly after an hour and a half, caught myself and was like, oh my God, when was the last time I was ever bored and just sort of was staring at a wall, just thinking for such a long period of time? And I got to be honest, I actually had some really great epiphanies where I was like, you know
I'm
what?
sure.
I should do this, I should do that. And it was like, oh my God, because actually, I do think as much as technology helps our life, and I'm certainly not an anti-technology, I love ChatGPT, but at the same time, what is it costing us within the sense of being bored, within not always overstimulating your brain and actually getting some time to think of thoughts that were sort of original is definitely something
Mhm.
I care about.
Gosh, it's so complicated, isn't it? Because the genie's out of the bottle, and of course, our lives have been dramatically improved. They have. It's not just dramatically changed. For me, it's dramatically improved by the internet and by technology. The problem is the thing we've designed is we're not kind of really able to moderate it. I do see tech as a bit of an addictive entity. Like other substances, when you look at the addiction model of like alcohol or other behaviors or substances, I think tech ticks a lot of the boxes, the way that people interact with it. And I don't know what the answer is. Can we make a less addictive form of the tech we already have? Can we be more mindful about what we go on to create so that people are able to tune out easily? I mean, I just think that the internet should just shut off for a period of hours every day, a bit like old-fashioned TV used to do. You used to get the screen up with the little girl and the chalkboard and the puppets. It's like there should just be a time of the day where the internet doesn't work. Everyone should just chill out.
Well, I'm not sure about a time of the day where the internet shouldn't work, but I have thought a lot more about, I think the problem is the screen that you're always looking at. I would
Mm.
be in favor of sort of a smart watch without a screen, but I could talk to it. Because I think sort of talking to tech is becoming big now. Like, I don't really type into ChatGPT. I just put on dictate and speak to it. And if you could sort of have the watch where you're like, oh, call, my mom and just, send her a voice note of this and that, or I'm lost, what direction, how do I get to this place? It could just say walk forward or whatever. That could work. So I think it's the doom scrolling, which is a visual
Yeah.
thing, right? So if you have more tech where it was there, but you had to speak to it and it would speak to you, I do think that might help with this problem with dopamine, right? Which is that, as you say, it's become an addiction. And also, I guess the other problem is that a lot of companies, like, they know that, and a lot of them have brought in, like,
Very much
people that
so.
are experts from gambling companies
Yeah.
to be like, okay, how do we make this more addictive? Oh, you have to scroll down, so it's almost like an excitement of what posts are you going to see now, and all that kind of stuff. So the people making the stuff we're spending the most time on don't have our best interests at heart. They have, how do we keep them on here for as long as possible as
Right.
as
And
their
so
guiding light.
I mean, maybe there's a way that tech sort of grays out. Maybe you're on Instagram for 10 minutes and then towards the 8th, 9th, 10th minute, it becomes incredibly boring and you lose interest in it naturally. And then you go off and do something else. There's so
Mm,
many answers to the problem that we've got. I don't necessarily think I like the idea of talking, but I personally, I mean, you love to talk. I don't think it would make any difference to my use. I think I would just start doing it differently. And I
okay.
love like I've been using a special dictation software recently to write when I'm not at my desk, and I absolutely love it. But it's just as consuming for me. It personally, it's just as consuming, and it would get more consuming if I used it. I think what we've got to do is make it boring to us because that's it's interesting that a lot of technologists themselves will have grey screen. Lots of people are going back to the most basic kind of smartphones or no smartphones at all. Lots of technologists in Silicon Valley won't let their children use the tech that they've created and are making loads of money out of. And that for me is always the killer. If you won't let your children use your amazing invention, then you've invented the
Mm,
wrong thing.
yeah. I always do think, I don't know if you feel this. I feel that there is such a, going back to this trend, a feeling of wanting the 90s back, where it was a simpler time, where the phone was still plugged into the wall for the most
Yeah.
part. The computer and the internet was in the house. And I think these tote bags are, being used by a generation that never even experienced that. They don't know a world without the internet, but sort of thinking, wouldn't that have been nice? And so I think maybe the human psyche is maybe realizing, look, this is great and there's benefits, but we've got to balance it out somehow because
Yeah,
too much of
for
it has
sure.
become unhealthy.
That's what it is. It's the regulation. And there's got to be something in the tech that helps us detach from it. That I think is the ultimate healthcare, mental health, positive technology solution.
Well, on that, let's move on to our next story because there's a device I can't wait to talk to you about.
Subscribe for more content.